Hey everyone, I'm gonna keep this warning really short and sweet. Some of the stories in this video are pretty dark and disturbing, and if you don't want to hear them, skip off. All that being said, let's get started. This just recently happened to me at my local Walmart. I'm a 19-year-old female. So I was by myself getting a few things at Walmart late in the afternoon. I grabbed a cart and headed to the home and pharmacy section to find something. I stop in the aisle with the protein bars to look for something specific as I had set my cart to the side. It wasn't crowded at Walmart and no one was in the aisle at the moment, but then a man approached me from the side and asked me something. I didn't see him before and I didn't see him come in the store. He didn't have a cart or really anything in his hands, and he was much taller than me. So I kept my distance, always on guard, especially since I was alone. He asked me something, but I couldn't really hear him, so I just said, "Huh?" He repeats himself, and he had asked me if I was from a town that's like 45 minutes from where I was. My flight or fight instincts kick in, and I say no and try to just walk away when he then says, "You're very pretty." I awkwardly smile and just walk away again, clearly not wanting to talk and extremely uncomfortable with this whole encounter, and he then asked me if I was single. I say I'm not interested very abruptly and walk away as fast as I could. I knew something was suspicious, and I was worried if I ran into him again he might try to continue talking to me. He didn't pose a threat. However, the context of me being alone and him saying that I looked familiar even though he approached me from the side was really suspicious. After that, I went to the checkout, checking to see if he was nearby, but I saw him walking in the opposite direction, which was a sign of relief. I then quickly got in my car, making sure I didn't see anyone. He could have very well have been harmless, but my instincts and his body language hit a red flag for me. So an old man showed up inside our apartment door asking about citizenship status, proclaiming he's moving into our apartment building. What the hell? So for context, we live in a 3-family home. My husband and I live on the 2nd floor apartment, and you wouldn't know where the door is unless you know where the door is, if that makes any sense. Our stairs are inside a covered porch area, and they're kind of hidden. So an older man with white hair showed up at our door yesterday and knocked on the door. My husband answered. He started telling us he was moving into the vacant apartment in the back of the house and that our landlord said that he could wait and move in May. Now mind you, we know our landlord well, and there's no way she would let the apartment stay vacant until May. He said that he had put down a deposit and she was holding it for him. He then started asking us all about our utility bills, landlord's last name, and demeanor, to which my husband answered because he thought initially he was our new neighbor. He then noted my husband's accent and asked, "Are you a citizen in this country?" My husband responded with yes. The convo continued kind of weird after that. We ended up texting our landlord and asked if she even knew this guy, as well as who was renting the back apartment. And she told us, "I don't even know him. A young mom is renting that apartment." It's safe to say that we're super creeped out, and fast forward, he showed up again today. We bought a door camera and now have him on video. We just don't understand who this man is or what his intentions are. Is he a confused old man or someone with bad intentions? So I started texting someone I met on a dating app. They made the conversation super 18 plus like as soon as we moved to text. I wasn't playing into it as I was currently at a family Christmas party at like 2 p.m. He would get upset and ask me if his magic wand wasn't good enough. He would send me more and more photos trying to get me to reply. But since I was at a family event that he also knew I was at, I didn't find it the best time or place to look at any text from him. Before I stopped opening his messages, he actually felt the need to ask if his photos made me wet. When I told him that I wasn't even thinking or looking at them because I was with my family and currently holding my 5-month-old nephew, he replied with, "So? You can still be wet?" "I'm sorry, but what?" When I got home, I decided to take a bath because the day I had was just really rough. He's now blowing up my phone wondering where I went and if I was finally home yet. Mind you, I told him I was busy and may not even reply till later in the night. I've known this man for 5 hours at this point. He asked me what I was thinking about after I got home. It was around 9 p.m. and I just told him, sleep to be honest. He didn't like the reply I gave him, and he asked me why I wasn't thinking about the photos he sent me and how I couldn't go back and look at them. This dude was nothing but provocative with me, and I turned it down many times, telling him I was upset due to a recent breakup and that I'm not looking for hookups. He wouldn't take no for an answer. He kept spamming my phone and calling me even when I told him that I was heading to bed. I was drinking the same night to unwind from the long day that I'd spent with family. He woke me up questioning me as why I wasn't talking to him, because he really wanted to talk to me, so I should be there to talk to him. I told him that I was sleeping and that I didn't want to talk. This man then asked me, well, aren't you drunk? Shouldn't you be in the mood? Like, really? I ended up hanging up on him and ignoring any messages from him until in the morning. I didn't reply until later in the afternoon, and by this time another gentleman that I had met a few weeks before had asked me on a date. I of course said yes and had a really great time. Said date and I drank at his place and played some LOL. It got late and we were pretty tipsy from the shots, so I just stayed at his place for the night as I didn't want to drive. This dude ended up calling me at 3 a.m. while I'm laying next to my date. I pick up the phone in a half-asleep daze and say hello. He called me to tell me that he was at my apartment complex and he wanted me to let him in so we can congregate. His words. Being confused as to how he knew where I lived, I woke up very quickly. I asked him how he knew where my place was, and he proceeded to tell me Facebook and some of my family's pages that I was tagged in. I assumed that he saw my mom's post when I moved in 2 years ago, which had the apartment sign in the background of the photo. I never once told this man my last name. Freaking out, I woke up my date and let him know what was going on. He takes me back to my house, but we don't go to my door. We looked around and I ended up asking him what he was driving. We find the car he's in and drive by slowly, and I take down the plates. I called the local sheriff's office to let them know what's going on so that they can send an officer out here to ask this person to leave the property. Once he's gone, my date waited with me inside for an hour just to be sure that he wasn't coming back. We then headed back to my date's house and proceeded to sleep for the remainder of the night. Sadly, it didn't end there. I woke up to a few more texts from a new number that I didn't have saved, as his was blocked. Well, it was him asking me why I didn't give him a chance, telling me that I was perfect but that I had let my emotions get in the way of what we could have had, telling me how I better not lose my chance at being with someone like him. He thought that his 9-inch magic wand was God's gift to the earth, and that if I didn't take this opportunity now, I'll live the rest of my life wondering what real magic feels like. I had no words for this person. I was stunned. How did someone I didn't even know 24 hours before this turn into what it did? I was really creeped out. I told him more than once to leave me alone and that I was with someone. He asked me why I picked a stranger over him, as if he wasn't also a stranger just the day before, not even a full day. This dude would say sorry after I snapped on him around 10:30 p.m. a bit before he showed up at my apartment building. He would say sorry and tell me that it was wrong of him to act that way, but then proceeded to act the same way he did before. His last text to me was, "No wonder you're still single." Yeah, man, no wonder I'm still single. I work for a university in a resident assistant position. On weekends, we usually work in teams of 3 with 2 people walking through a building and 1 person at the front desk checking people in. While me and my coworker were walking on the 9th floor engaging with students and enforcing the rules of the residence hall, my coworker suddenly received a call on our work phone, surprisingly from our on-campus police. She picks up the phone to a woman frantically crying for help. Before she can respond though, the phone is hung up. This was especially a scary moment for us because of the authenticity of the woman's crying. Unless it was an audio recording of a movie, I have no doubt that this was a real person in extreme distress and not a prank. The worst part of the whole situation is that we had received the same call a few months before with the same people working at the same time on the same floor. With our team of 60 plus people, it's extremely unlikely to work with the same 3 coworkers twice. When we started our shift, I actually made a joke that we would get the same phone call, and we did. After getting the phone call twice, we both agreed that they were probably accidentally redirected 911 calls, especially since the number that was listed was literally the police phone number. We called the non-emergency number and talked to the dispatcher, who was not helpful at all. I don't really blame him because it is such a random event. He took our names and said he would report it. However, the thing that creeped me out even more is that he mentioned that they hadn't received any calls at all that night, and therefore nothing could have been accidentally redirected. This is when my mind suddenly clicked earlier near the start of the school year that I'd received a call from the same campus police number, and it was just my boss who was asking me to come to her office and help a lost student. As I got the call, I remember panicking as it was a campus police caller ID. This was before either of the calls of the woman crying. I told her about her caller ID being wrong and she agreed that it was weird, but retired literally weeks after that talk. At the time, I didn't find this weird, but now I look back at it and I think the call begging for help might have come from her office, which is now empty. My coworker and I walked to the office hallway, which is connected to our building, and tried getting into her office, but it was locked. It's important to mention we got the call both times at around 10:40. And it's now completely dark out with no one around, especially in the staff area. All the offices are completely inaccessible to the public, but one room that me and my coworker had the key for. We opened the door and found one of the old phones in the office and used it to call our work phone. You guessed it, it rang as the campus police. Now we're scared. We cleared the rest of the building for anyone in distress, but we didn't really find anything. After finding nothing, we went our separate way and ended our shift an hour after midnight. Now I'm just sitting here trying to figure out what the hell that poor woman was calling us for. Why did she hang up? Why did this happen twice with the same exact unlikely circumstances? Why was the caller ID from the police? This is getting long now, but I'll make some important notes. Our third coworker is a man with a thick accent. He couldn't have prank called us from the boss's phone and pretended to be a woman. The first call back in October was of a woman crying and saying please help. The second call I didn't hear, as well as my coworker received it. She said it felt different, but was definitely a woman crying and begging. I am in an area with a lot of human trafficking and feel a strange sadness and fear that this may be what I heard. I've worked here for 2 years and I'm good friends with most of our team. No one has experienced this except for us. I only have 2 possible theories. The call was a redirect from the police and the dispatcher chose to hide his mistake, or someone snuck into my boss's office and called us begging for help. I'm writing this story partially because I'm too scared to sleep, and partially to know if anyone can think of a better reason for the calls. Hey everyone, sorry for the interruption to the stories, but I want to thank today's sponsor HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week delivered right to your door. If you're tired of figuring out what's for dinner night after night, especially on those busy weekdays, get dinner done the easy way thanks to HelloFresh. I especially like it on the nights that I get home from the gym where I just really don't know what I want to make. But with HelloFresh, it's super easy. Get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/Cannibal10FM. 1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/Cannibal10FM. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Hi, I'm a 21-year-old female with a whole bunch of baggage. I've struggled with my mental health my entire life, and last year I was admitted to an acute psychiatric hospital. I've only recently been discharged. Without blogging about my life, I went through some tough, dark times. Luckily, I managed to get out, and after 7 admissions, I'm ready to re-enter the world. Anyways, my final admission was to a ward that I'd been to a couple of times before. I knew the staff and many of the patients. Sure, it was difficult and tumultuous at times, but most people strive to make it as bearable as possible. The daily routine, at least in the UK psych wards, is usually the same. Wake up, take meds, eat food, watch TV, take meds, eat food again, take a nap, eat food, take meds, go to sleep. You get the gist. I also want to mention that the taking a nap part was optional. It's boring as hell, to say the least. So one day I came back to my room just after breakfast to see Karen, the usual ward cleaner. She was standing in my room staring out of my window and looking fairly startled. Now, when you work as a cleaner on a psych ward, you really see some crap, often literally, so I knew that something was up. Hey Karen, what's going on? She explained that while she was cleaning my room, she had seen a thin middle-aged man wearing sunglasses and carrying a backpack walk past the room a couple of times. She said that something seemed off about him. I sort of shrugged it off because he may well have just been a lost patient, as they usually all look off, so I went about my day as usual. Then at around midday, I went to grab something from my window shelf and was suddenly face to face with this middle-aged man wearing sunglasses. And yeah, a backpack. He didn't look especially freaky, just a normal lanky looking guy. Still, I freaked the hell out and ran out of the room. The windows were tinted, so I'm fairly sure he couldn't have seen me, but it still gave me quite a fright. During the next few days, a number of patients and staff members saw him stalk past numerous windows, which was especially strange because the ward was fenced off so that your average bystander wouldn't and couldn't find themselves near the unit. We all wondered whether he was just a curious adventurer or if it was something a bit more sinister. 3 days after the initial encounter, I'd kind of forgotten about the whole thing, and I just went to bed with my window slightly cracked. It wouldn't open the whole way, and the ward was often boiling. I'm aware that I might have imagined this, but I swear at around 1 a.m. I woke up and heard something tapping on my window. I tried looking through the window, but it was dark, so all I could really see was my own reflection. But I freaked the hell out, shut the window, and told the night staff what was up. That morning, numerous patients were complaining of weird noises during the night, including tapping and sometimes even heavy breathing. One girl even swore that she heard him or someone try to open her window further. But this wasn't a psych ward, so I took it with a pinch of salt. Anyway, security was upped for the next few days, and we never saw him again. This story is years old, and I don't go on this website anymore even though I still create art. There are many reasons why I left that site, but this has to be the worst possible reason. In 2012, I was 12 years old. I got my first account on DeviantArt before I knew how to really draw. The only thing I knew how to do when it came to art was just crappy pencil drawings with colored pencil etched into it. My first post was of Hatsune Miku, which I'm sure everybody knows or has heard of this anime girl with the blue pigtails. So I drew a crappy rendition of this character, blissfully unaware that her skirts seemed to be too short in the drawing. Looking back, I was still at an immature age, so I didn't really think much about it at the time. Looking at the drawing now, it wasn't really that decent, but I didn't know. Because I had drawn this, I saw a message on my submission where I uploaded it. And the comments on my drawing, there was someone who messaged me simply saying, "Hey, nice drawing," with the smiley face emoticon from the website. I was so excited because it was my first ever comment on one of my art pieces. I then looked at my profile and realized that he had watched me as well. Then I was very excited and also happy that I also had my first watcher on my account. His username had glutton in the title. I don't remember the exact details of his name. He favorited my drawing and I replied to his comment by saying a simple thanks with a smiley face. Here's where things got a bit weird for me. He replied with, "You're welcome," like common courtesy on the site, but then followed the comment up with, "I really like how short you made the girl's skirt." Keep in mind, I was only 12 and I had no idea what he completely meant in that context, so I replied with, "It's a statement for anime girls to have short skirts," or something along those lines. He then replied with, "Oh, of course. Yours is my favorite though." Okay, a bit of a strange reply. Before replying to him back, I dug a bit deeper into his profile, wondering if I should be nice to favorite him back. His profile stated that he was 21 years old. Yes, the site lets you display your exact age on the top front page, and it was the same for me. I legitimately put that I was 12. Did he realize how young I actually was for him to not be saying that? But like any oblivious 12-year-old kid, your brain doesn't quite piece things together, and you go along with whatever may cross your mind. So I friended this creepy man back. I don't remember the conversation after that other than we kept it friendly and moved on. I would occasionally post more pictures, but he would comment only on a few of them and usually he was nice. But then there was always some weird comments like, "I wonder how long she could sit like that if I ever had the character in a certain pose," or, "Hey, can I taste her, please?" with the XD face. And again, I would pay no mind to these comments because my watchers were building up to see my work, and I rarely replied to the man again. I did, however, go on his profile again after he commented something, and found pictures of this elephant cartoon that I forgot the name of. He seemed to love this elephant cartoon that he was obsessed with, and everywhere on his profile I saw this cartoon and fan art of it. Then I looked a bit more into his gallery, and there were a lot of these gray pieces with a minus sign on them, indicating that it was NSFW 18+ artwork. I didn't know about this at the time either, so I tried pressing on it wondering why it was grayed out. Then there was a message that said mature artwork, must be 18 or older to view it. I remember frowning at this, thinking that it wasn't fair for me not to see it. I wish I could tell you that I never saw it to this day and didn't let my curiosity get the better of me, but I'd be very wrong. I made a second account claiming that I was 18 just to see what type of art this guy drew, because my mind was just really curious enough to see it. Oh, how I regretted that. He had fan art drawings related to or hinting at child porn. There were really disturbing ones relating to the cartoon he liked, with the little girl elephant character being strangled and horrible things done to her by her dad. You guys can figure it out on your own. There were also pictures of anime girls looking 10 years old or possibly younger in sexual positions, and again, very bad things being done to them. There were even some gore fest pictures among the elephant ones I saw, and more really bad art pieces depicting children, along with gore themes as well. Impalement, cutting out body parts with a knife, torture involving blood, hypnotism, and much more. It was very dark and disturbing. Suffice to say, I unfriended the guy immediately on my main account and was extremely disturbed at this. A week later, he had still messaged me on my main account and said, "Why did you unfriend me? Sad face." I felt no sympathy for him and said something along the lines of, "You are so disgusting, and you draw really disgusting things." He said something to the effect of, "Well, so are you. Let people have their own opinions, sweetheart," along with a smiley face. I then found out how to block a user on the site, so I blocked him. That gave me internal peace, but it didn't last for long. A year after the entire incident, I was using the 18-year-old account as a backup account and for different art mediums. Nobody knew this account was linked to my other one. Somehow my old friend Glutton manages to find me, without telling me anything about how the two accounts are related to each other, and exactly 1 year later in the summer, he PMs me on my other account. The message said, "Hey, did you miss me, sweetie? I missed you since the unfriend. Sad face." That's okay. My eyes widened in horror, and I kept thinking to myself, How? How did this pervert find me? He must have been really experienced in computer tech or hacking, because I have no idea how that possibly could have happened, let alone a year later. I replied to him saying, I unfriended you because you draw illegal things and you should be banned from this website. What followed next was him trying to creepily get under my skin by role-playing with me. At this point, he was now 22 and I'm 13, still very much disturbed by him. But he only made things worse by talking to me in roleplay terms, using asterisks in everything he said. He literally said that he was grabbing my bum gently in asterisks, among other lewd comments to me. Some asterisks and some without. I'm just sitting there like, oh boy, here we go again, obviously disgusted. So I block him on the backup account as well. Considering the types of things he drew, I think he definitely liked flirting with preteens on purpose and probably got a kick out of it. For the most part, being on DeviantArt was okay for me after that, but people like him who draw lewd things like that plagued the site. He's the major reason that I left it. So I know this entire encounter was online, and a lot of these experiences happen in real life for many others, but you never know who you could end up meeting in real life from the internet. I really hope Glutton got some help, and he's not still so disturbed like he was back then. But I definitely don't want to meet him in real life. I also hope that he stopped flirting with 12-year-olds. It's really disgusting. When I was a junior in high school, I was quite an odd kid. I liked having colorful hair, piercings, and all that kind of stuff. And the school I went to was near Atlanta, so there weren't many people like me. I tried to find friends that liked the same kind of music and other interests, and I could normally kind of brush off any weird energy that people put off, ignore it. I just wanted friends. Anyway, I was in the gym one day hanging out with a group of weirdos, and there was a guy that I hadn't seen before. He was wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt and jeans that were like a size too small. His name was Ernest. We immediately clicked with each other in a platonic way, because we laughed at a lot of the same things. We started hanging out in gym together every day, people watching and making fun of people play basketball. It wasn't too long until he'd started to make fun of my appearance and making me feel absolutely terrible about myself. I had acne super bad in high school, and he joked saying that I had meth skin. First strike. Me being me though, I kept hanging out with him, and eventually it led to hanging out after school. He would invite me over to his house, and we only stayed in his room. He refused to let me meet his family. His parents didn't really speak English, but I still wanted to meet them. I always thought it was weird that Ernest didn't know any Spanish, but his siblings did. And when he could speak words, it sounded Russian. He pretty much only played It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on TV, and also rambled about superheroes and would always come up with these strange scenarios where he was an evil villain and how much power he would have. Fast forward and I got a job at a pizza place. Ernest gets the same job at the same pizza place. So inevitably we were always together. Always. He pretty much never let me out of his grasp. It got to a point where he took me to school every day in his PT Cruiser, which I still get chills every time I see one of those damn shoe-shaped cars. We started skipping school like a lot. I mean, we pretty much went to school about 2 or 3 times a week. This is where it starts to suck pretty bad. He started pressuring me to do sexual things with him. I don't really want to get into the details because it's pretty disturbing, but he manipulated the situation in such a way that I felt like we were in a relationship because I thought that I needed him. He really convinced me that we were a couple, but I was also so repulsed by him that I could never fully accept that. He started telling our other friends that he had sex with me and that we were in a relationship. I denied it all. To this day, I deny it. I've lied to therapists, I've lied to my friends, but right now I'm admitting to all of that. At one point, he ended up living with me and my family in the same room as me. He had convinced my entire family that he was gay so that he could live with me. He literally dressed up in pink and put a scarf around his neck and pranced around my aunt trying to win her over with his fake personality. I was so used to living in chaos that this was barely a problem for me. During all of this, he was a rude piece of crap to me. I remember asking him for a ride one day and he actually said no for no good reason. I started getting really pissed off because he couldn't actually give me a reason. He just kept smirking at me. He did this type of thing frequently. We were sitting in the living room and he silently got up and drove off somewhere. Then he came back, walked to the living room doorway and stared at me for 15 seconds and walked into my room. I heard a bunch of rustling, so I storm in there thinking he's up to something sketchy. He's gotten completely dressed into his sleep pants with his hand in his pocket, and he just wouldn't take his hand out of his pocket. At this point, I'm scared. I force my hand into his pocket and pull out a knife. I don't remember how the night or days continued after that. Fast forward again. I'm at my best friend Kayla's birthday party and everyone's camping in the backyard. Ernest hated Kayla because she was a way out for me, in his perspective. She got in the way of us. I'm sweating typing this out because this is probably one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. The sequence of events is a little bit blurry, but I remember it. I had made it clear to Ernest that at this point in time that we were not a thing and that he needed to let go of that fantasy. I had a crush on this boy named John and we slept in the same tent together. Morning comes and I hear Ernest outside asking people if they knew where I was. Someone said, "She's in the tent with John." I was scared immediately. I knew that something bad was about to happen. The tent rips open and I don't have a shirt on. He begins screaming as loud as he can, cussing us all out and just pitching an absolute fit, and he storms off. He goes to his car and he calls me, telling me to get in the car now. Everyone there was freaked out, and Kayla advised me to not go to the car because she knew how scary Ernest was just as a person. I didn't want anyone to be uncomfortable, so I figured that if I went to the car, it would ease everyone just a little bit that he wasn't there. I went. As soon as the car door closed, we sped off. Fast. Really fast. I look over at him wide-eyed and he's crying with absolutely no expression in his face. Tears streaming but emotionless. He says, "You were supposed to love me," over and over again. He started speeding faster and then said, "If I can't love you, no one else can." I'm actively having a straight panic attack in the passenger seat. I can't hear because my ears are ringing and I can't see anything. Meanwhile, Kayla has already called my mom and somehow my mom left the house fast enough to track us down in that PT Cruiser. He then parks at a church and my mom's watching us. Ernest has a box cutter at his side. I got a call from my mom. I can't really remember what she said, but I know it was something along the lines of, "I'm gonna slit your throat," to Ernest. He starts coming to his senses, if you can even call it that, and he drops me back off at Kayla's and tells me that he's going to kill himself after he drops me off. Kayla and I were frantically trying to call his parents about a possible imminent suicide. However, they couldn't speak English. He called the police on himself because he thought he was going to harm himself or someone else. He was gone for a couple of weeks, and when he came back, he had parked outside my school waiting for me to come out. He runs up to me. I noticed that he had a plaid button-up shirt and it was tucked into his pants, which was just extremely odd to me, and I knew immediately that this was a fake personality. He was speaking differently as well, proper almost, like a few weeks had turned him into a saint. It wasn't long after that I admitted myself into a mental institution because I just kept breaking down. Everyone in the groups told me to get rid of him, and I had not realized just how serious this was until I saw everyone's reactions to the stories. There are so many stories of this psycho, but I can't even type it all out. I did get rid of him. I found new friends, and without them, I don't know how this would have gone. I haven't seen or spoken to him in about 3 years, so good riddance.